Today, we're doing something a little different. We're not just explaining a topic, we're going to look at how a topic gets explained. Our source material is this Grade 2 Islamic Studies textbook. We're essentially going to look under the hood and see how it goes about introducing some of life's biggest questions to a 7-year-old.
And that really is the central challenge, isn't it? How do you take these massive concepts like God, creation, and faith and make them understandable to a child? This textbook is a really fascinating case study in how to teach, how to simplify, and how to build a worldview right from square one. So let's see how they get started.
So naturally, the book starts at the very beginning. And the first job, maybe the biggest job of all, is explaining the nature of God. I mean, how do you even begin to tackle that? Well, it doesn't start with some heavy, abstract theology. Nope. It starts with what you can see and touch. The very first lesson connects the idea of Allah directly to the idea of the Creator. The strategy is super clear. Start with the world a child already knows, the world they can see, to build a picture of the one who made it all.
Okay, so let's dive into the actual language they use to build this foundation, because this is where you can really see their teaching strategy in action.
Just look at how simple this is. Super short, direct sentences. It creates this rhythm, you know? It's almost like a chant, something that's really easy to remember. He made the sky, he made the earth.
And then it just keeps going, linking the Creator to things a kid sees every single day. The plants, the trees, the flowers in the yard.
And the fish in the water, the birds in the sky. You see what's happening here, right? This repetition, this pattern, it's building this really powerful, all-encompassing picture of a Creator who is responsible for absolutely everything.
Okay, and here's where it takes a pretty big leap. After grounding everything in what we can see, the book introduces this much bigger, more abstract idea: creation out of thin air. The phrase, "be and it is." I mean, that's a really simple but incredibly powerful way to explain omnipotence to a 7-year-old. All right, so the book has laid out the what, but the real question is, how do you make these huge ideas actually stick in a kid's mind? Well, that's where the teaching tools come in. We're moving from just stating facts to telling stories and getting interactive.
So instead of a dry lecture, we get a story, and it's a great one. You've got grandfather Salman who calls his grandkids over. The setup is so simple and relatable, right? A wise old grandpa, a little treat, and what sounds like a really easy instruction.
And here's the twist. The real test wasn't about listening to Grandpa. It was a hands-on lesson in God's omniscience. The story basically takes this huge theological concept that God sees everything and turns it into this memorable little tale with a hero, Ahmad, who totally gets it.
And this is the really clever part. After the story connects with you emotionally, the book locks in the lesson. It boils the whole thing down to these 4 super clear, easy-to-remember points. The story makes you feel it, and the bullet points give you the facts to memorize.
But wait, there's more. It doesn't just stop at the story and the moral. It gets the kid actively involved with exercises. You've got true or false to make sure the main idea's landed. Fill in the blanks to test if they remember the details. And even word scrambles, which is a clever way to make them think about the exact phrasing of these key ideas.
Okay, so explaining creation using the world around you? Makes sense. Explaining that God is all-seeing using a story? Smart. But what about something that's completely abstract? Something you can't see or touch, like faith? Let's see how they tackle that one.
Well, first, it gives a really direct, simple definition. And look at the words they use: complete trust, with all your heart. But the really key move here is setting up a direct contrast between faith and doubt. For a kid, that creates a super clear black and white picture. There's no gray area. It's an absolute.
And here's another brilliant move. How do you make a huge idea like Iman or faith feel manageable? You break it down into a list, a concrete numbered list. So this giant abstract concept suddenly becomes a structured, easy-to-memorize set of 6 things. It's a classic teaching trick, right? Turn a big idea into a checklist you can learn and repeat.
Okay, for our last section, let's zoom out a bit. We've seen the what and the how, but what about the why? Why does this textbook even exist? Turns out the publisher's note tells us exactly why.
And there it is, right there in black and white. The publisher, Dar es Salaam, saw what they called a dire need. Basically, a big gap in the market. There just wasn't enough solid, authentic Islamic studies material out there in English for kids in schools. So they created this entire series to fill that gap.
And it wasn't just about getting the words right. They say it themselves. The colorful art is a huge part of the strategy. This art isn't just for fun. It's a tool.
It's deliberately designed to grab a kid's attention, to get them excited, and to help teach them. For them, the visuals are just as crucial as the text.
So, when you step back and look at the whole picture, you realize this was a really ambitious project. The goal was to cover everything, all the different areas of Islamic studies. They wanted it to be authentic, so they made sure to include the original Arabic terms. And, at its heart, it was a mission to create something they felt was really, really missing.
And that kind of leaves us with this one big question, right? When you break down how this textbook teaches faith to a child, using simple statements, unforgettable stories, and these neat structured lists, you actually end up with a really clear picture of the core beliefs. And it makes you wonder, what can we learn about the essential truth of any big idea just by thinking about how we'd explain it to a 7-year-old?